In the racing world, the pole position is awarded to the fastest car. And today, we will hear from Charles Bowman, why Charlotte is leading the pack. Charles Bowman has been a finance business executive at Bank of America since March of 2008 and serves as the market president of its North Carolina and Charlotte operation. Headquartered in Charlotte, Bank of America has a long history, and you will not have to look far over the next couple of days to see what great impact Bank of America has had in this city. Since becoming market president, Charles has found a way to balance community impact and business integration through humanity and relationship building. Today, Charles will share his perspective of what a high-performance city means to be successful and how Charlotte has transformed itself. From one banker to another, it is my pleasure to introduce Charles Bowman, Market President of North Carolina and Charlotte for Bank of America to the city.
I'm going to do a couple things before I get started. I'm also going to bore you here, but first thing I have to do is tell you that Dan Klotzfelter and I are from the same hometown. Thanks, Dan. At least one person, Thomasville. And I had to follow Dan, and you can tell how smart Dan is. I'm a little bit younger than Dan, but I had to live up to all of Dan's reputation as I was coming through school. The second thing is, well, we'll get to that in a second. I'm going to show you where you are, because I know, having been on these trips, I've probably been on 10 of these chamber trips on behalf of Charlotte, and I know you got off a plane, they put you on a bus, and you come here. So what you see up on the screen is a map of Mecklenburg County. You'll also notice that Charlotte occupies most of the land mass of Mecklenburg County, so frequently we talk about, even though our county friends wouldn't agree with us, the city and the county are very similar in terms of what their orientations are. You'll see at the north, you're getting I know there's a real estate tour of Birkdale Village, very innovative area up near Lake Norman, which is up to our north. I think you also see, you see the Charlotte Motor Speedway up near Concord. And I will give an advertisement for the Speedway. If you've never been in a car, I know you have your version of the race in Kentucky, but our version of the race is on a hard surface on a bank track. But if you ever get a chance to be in a car going 180 miles an hour, you should do it, as long as you make sure all your insurance is paid up. But it's truly an experience, and you will never think that NASCAR drivers are anything but elite athletes after you do that. What else? We have center stage, Snowdon, Dan's described. I've got to keep looking around here because you're going to go to what's called CPCC, Central Piedmont Community College, which is near the downtown area. Also with the Arts Festival. In fact, you can almost walk from the Westin Hotel to some of those areas. And then you'll see a big star, and you should probably have 5 stars around the airport. In a lot of our opinions, the single most dominant economic driver of this region is that airport. Something we're very proud of, but we also know how important it is to us. So that's orientation. I'm going to, at the end, give you an orientation of where you're going to be this evening in downtown. But what I want to emphasize today is how important this trip is. This may be the most important trip any of you have ever taken so far. Why do I say that? I believe that you are part of a revolution. And in Mecklenburg County, we got this thing called MECDEC. We were early signers of the Declaration of Independence, or our version of that. But why do I say that you and we are part of a revolution? I think about it like this, and I'm going to think a little more broadly than Louisville and Lexington and even Charlotte. I think what you're doing is going to change America. And this is not completely my idea. There are a couple of academics who've written a book called The Metropolitan Revolution. Bruce Katz and Jennifer Bradley. I haven't met Bruce, but I have met Jennifer, who came to town, and I think they're onto something. But their premise is this: federal government's in gridlock, state governments are a mixed bag, but for the most part, states have no money. And it will be the cities. It will be the cities that change our economy. It will be the cities that change how we work. It will be the cities that change how we trade with each other. And whether you're in Houston, or Dallas, or Chicago, or Louisville, or Lexington, or San Diego, all cities that we've been to, it will be how these cities deal with problems, because we can't run from them. If you live in a city, it's where the people live. Over half of our, well, in North Carolina, 80% of our population, to Dan's point earlier about how we've changed since the 1960s, 80% of our people in North Carolina now live in a city. Over half of the world's population now lives in a city. And the predictions are that by 2050, 3/4 of the world's population will live in a city or metropolitan area. And they will be our problems to solve. So, with that, I think you're part of a revolution. But the Charlotte-centric part of what I want to talk about takes us on really 3 places in time. How did we get here? Where are we? And where are we going? And you will have my perspective. These are mostly mine. I am a product. I've been at Bank of America for 18 years, and so I will confess that many of my life's journeys are tainted by everything that's happened, good and bad, at Bank of America. But you're going to have one citizen's perspective, and as a real citizen, Dan's proud of living here. I'm proud of you, Dan, and I'm proud of the city. And that's the one thing I think you will find with every single person that you will meet in the next couple days. One last point before I get on to the where we were, where we are, and where we're going. For the next 2 days, forget that you're Lexingtonians or Louisvillians, whatever you call yourselves. You are Charlotteans. So all of you, for the next 2 days, we don't call you charlatans. We're going to call you Charlotteans. Just remember that. When you get back on the plane, you go back home, you can be something else. But you are part of us for the next 2 days. So, how do we get here? And the theme I'm going to tell you a little bit about the journey from the 80s and the 90s to today. But we got here because we had leadership that saw change as opportunity. I've been in the banking business, and we've lived through some pretty dark years in the last number of years. And sometimes people say, "How's it going?" And it's going okay. But at every move, the optimism that comes through, whether you're in the bank or you're outside of the bank, in the hospitals, here, in the education community, you will get the sense that people are saying, change is good. And where there's change, that means there's opportunity. Dan talked about the diversification of our economy, and you're beginning to see that. But back to where we were. 1983, I moved here, and you could fire a cannon off on Tryon Street, which is our main street, and nobody would know if it was at 6 o'clock. We had telephone poles and wires going down the street, and the big project back then was figuring out how to bury the lines and put them underneath the street so we could have streetscape and sidewalks like you'll see today. But the real driver was a man named McCall. And Mr. McCall's mission was to grow. He was part of a little tiny thing called NCMB. And he decided he was going to start merging banks. So the banks, and went to Florida first, and then to Georgia, or then to Texas, and then to Georgia. But he was also about building a city. And this is where I say leadership sees change as an opportunity. And there were many others. There were mayors, Stan Brookshire, John Belk. There were competitor CEOs. But as much as anyone, Mr. McCall thought like this. I'm building a large institution. I'm building a great company. But if I don't have people who want to live and breathe in my city, I won't get the best. I won't get the best people living here. And so he set out, and even today, I will tell you, he's on a mission today, a man in his mid-70s, and still raising money for causes in Charlotte, North Carolina. But he started building buildings. He started merging banks. He started saying to the community, we need a center city partnership, which you'll hear about as well, I hope, in the next couple of days. He built, in fact, I want you to throw your maps away when you're in the center city, because all you have to do to find your bearings is look up. And you'll see the tallest building in town is the building that Hugh Hall built in 1992. But the 1980s were about merging banks. The 1990s, we added, then we recruited a school called Johnson & Wales up from Charleston. We put in the arts facility that you'll see a part of today. And when you see the arts facilities, think about city and county and Wachovia at the time, Bank of America, Duke Energy, all these companies coming together to raise about $80 million. We finished that in the midst of a recession. All coming together, not as arts for art's sake, but as a place to be able to create excitement for people. But as we were changing banks, we were changing how we did business, the city, and you'll hear the other comment, public-private partnership. So we began to think about how we did transportation, how we delivered health care. We helped build the Whitewater Center, which I highly recommend anybody who wants to get wet, go up to the Whitewater Center to be able to bring the U.S. Olympic team into Charlotte to train. But the 80s and the 90s, and then the early 2000s, most of what you will see from your window at the West End wasn't here in 1983. It's all been built in the last 20 to 30 years. So, leaders saw change as opportunity. We built arts, we built transportation, we built an arena, we built a Bank of America Stadium today, which was built through a combination of, and this is actually a pretty good story. The state had to move a railway line. The county had to move a jail. Companies had to give up their location. Real estate agents had to give in a little bit on their commissions. A group of citizens recruited Jerry Richardson and said, build it here, don't build it in South Carolina. And if you look at a Panther helmet today, you see the emblem on the Panther helmets. It's actually the outline of two states, North and South Carolina, with the state line erased in the middle, and Charlotte's right in the center. Hence the Carolina Panthers. Again, built with a combination of private, public, I won't say money, but everybody coming in together to make sure that something worked in uptown Charlotte. So that's a little bit of how we got here. But where are we today? And my theme for this is demographics are destiny. Demographics are destiny. Dan talked about it a little bit in terms of diversification. There are now over 35 languages spoken in our school systems. We have 30 or 40,000 students at Central Piedmont Community College. We have a university system, University of North Carolina at Charlotte, Davidson at the north, Queens College in a suburban community. We have Hispanic population that in 1992, it was about a third less than what it is today. And from a perspective of how did that happen, in 1992, we built the Bank of America Tower, which you'll see that I mentioned earlier. And there weren't enough construction workers to build that. So the recruitment process went on for a largely Hispanic population to come and to help build that building from 1988 to 1992. And in the process, those folks came and they stayed. So we're changing. The demographics are changing. Young people want to live here. The chances of your buying a car, if you're between the ages of 18 and 30, are less than if you're over 75 years old. That's how the demographics are changing today. Take a look, when you're in the West End, look out your hotel window. Find the light rail line. Something we're very proud of as well. First light rail line built in North Carolina. Follow the rail line and notice the economic development along that rail line. Also notice that at the end, toward the southern parts of that rail line, or note that the Hispanic population along that rail line grows every day. So demographics will drive what we do. North Carolina, in this last census, 33 counties, 100 counties in North Carolina, 33 counties would have experienced negative population growth, but for immigration. 33 counties. And so what does that tell me? It tells me that people are moving into cities, and we think that's great. But it also means, how are we going to respond to that? How are we going to change what we do in our workplace? People they don't want a car to drive in from 25 miles away. They want to live on a rail line. They want to live where they can get to work, where they can play, where they can have entertainment, and they really don't want to be in a car. Just an example of where demographics are destiny. The last comment that I'll make is, where are we going? So, if I could draw a picture of Charlotte, or where I think we will go, it will depend on one thing. It will depend upon the innovation of its people, and it will depend upon the intellectual capital of its people. And bear with me for just a second as I draw this picture. So I mentioned the educational complex. I mentioned the medical complex. I mentioned we're still the second largest banking center outside of New York. But it will be because people innovate. They change a place like NODOP, as Dan's mentioned. But they also change other places. They change how the arts community works. They change how people give. They change where people live. They create jobs. And to do that, you will need bright, educated, well-disciplined people with a structure in which to do that. So I'm going to end with two stories that I hope will illustrate, and I'm using them primarily because I think they're microcosms of what we do really well in this community. So you can hear those themes of leadership, seeing change as opportunity, demographics as destiny, and collaboration and innovation being the key. The first one is around a company called Charlotte Ballet. Charlotte Ballet was formerly called the North Carolina Dance Theater. It just changed its name about 2 months ago. 10 years ago, or 3 years ago, you couldn't have dragged me to a ballet. My wife would take me to a ballet and I'd probably sleep through half of it. But a couple years ago, I got a call. Someone was doing a fundraiser. They said, we need somebody from the bank to dance in this thing called Dancing with the Stars. Okay, this is really good. And I was the volunteer from Bank of America. And so what it is a fundraiser where 6 business executives are crazy enough to get on stage with a ballet dancer. And I thought, okay, how painful can this be? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I learned from that experience. That didn't really want to do it. I was doing it because I'm a market president. Somebody needed to represent the bank. But I was introduced to a young dancer named Melissa Antoisa. And Melissa said, what kind of dance experience do you have? And I said, 0. She said, well, great, we're going to do a song. So after about 16 hours of preparation, and actually somewhere out there on YouTube, you can find it somewhere, I'll send you the DVD. I performed for 90 seconds in front of a full audience, and it was an exhilarating experience. It connected me in a way, I'm going to tell the rest of the story in a second, but it connected me in a way that I never had an experience doing. It connected me with someone who was young, talented, innovative, pound for pound, one of the best athletes in town. It demonstrated to me what a jewel we had in a dance company that I've never set foot in. And here's the other part. They gave away half of the money that we raised to other charities. So think about that. How many of you in here would give up half of your net profit to somebody else just to make them better? See a couple bankers down here. See the utility folks down here, they wouldn't do that. Yeah. They're looking at me like, nah, I don't do that. Just so you know, okay? But the bigger story, so I got connected. And when we talk about, I'm going to come back to that word we use fairly frequently called collaboration, that is really, really more difficult than I think we make it to be. But 5 to 6 years ago, the Charlotte Ballet was probably on the brink of, I won't say folding its doors, but they were a pretty fragile organization. A group of people got together, and I wasn't part of this. I know the individuals were. So the folks from Deloitte and Accenture and some of the law firms and a couple folks from the bank got together and said, we've got to change our business model. So what did they do? They started developing building sets. Does Louisville have, I didn't check, does Louisville have a ballet? Yes. You guys do, okay, so you may be the beneficiary of this. They said every year we put on Peter Pan, we put on Snow White, Cinderella. So why don't we build the sets, own the sets, and then we'll rent them to the other ballet in Texas or Tennessee or wherever. Why don't we make the costumes, and we'll own the costumes. And maybe another ballet down the road will do the same thing for another performance, and we'll, instead of having to invest our capital in doing that, we'll be able to rent it from them the next year, or lease it from them. So they started to change their business model. They also came to the bank and said, you know, you have a piece of property right across the street from us here. You're not really doing anything with it. Would you consider donating it to us? So we donated the land. A couple of the very generous, wealthy families in town came together. They rebuilt the facility. And today they could probably double the capacity for fee-paying dance lessons at the Charlotte Ballet. They changed their business model. They saw opportunity. We had a public-private, sort of a public-private partnership in building a new facility. They have great people. They're innovative. They're disciplined. They created a structure. And today, because I asked, how many $10,000 givers do you have more today than you had 5 years ago? Or pre-recession? And the answer was yes. I've got more people writing personal $10,000 checks to an organization that 6 years ago was probably looking at teetering on the edge. I use that as an example of innovation, collaboration. It may be a really small one. The larger scale ones are about light rail and transit facilities and sales taxes and expanding the infrastructure and building roads. But that's an example of how this community, the proudest thing I am of this community is its public-private nature, virtually everything it does. Whether it's education, it's healthcare, it's transportation. Ultimately, we all come together in some way to find the structure, the discipline, the the money and the know-how to make cities great. I think we are part of a revolution. I hope and understand that Bruce Katz is coming to Louisville at some point in the next month. I would encourage you to read the book, The Metropolitan Revolution, and continue to be part of this. I think the last thing I'm supposed to do, because I've gotten the sign, I think you guys are going to move on, is this. This is downtown, so let me stand out here and tell you where you're going to be going. Your hotel is over here. It's called the Westin. Bottom. Oh, right where it says Westin. Okay, I can really see that. I gotta get my orientation. Westin, the NASCAR Hall of Fame, which is about 2 blocks outside your door. The Epicenter, somebody asked about nightlife. If you're looking for something to do, I think they're gonna let you go about 4 o'clock today, so head to the Epicenter. It'll be a younger crowd, but something I think you'll all enjoy. You'll also, Dan mentioned earlier, the Mint Museum and Cultural Arts Facilities. Mint Museum, African American Cultural Center, the Beckler Museum, all came online about 2009, 2010, right in the part of the recession. And if you get lost, Trading Trine is the square. Look up, you'll see the Bank of America Tower, and I think that gives you sufficient. Cities divided into 4 wards, 1, 2, 3. You'll be in second ward, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I hope that gives you some sense of your bearings. Last point I'll make. Everything you see was done through a collaborative partnership between companies, government, and private individuals. So with that, I will take any questions anybody may have. Over here.
What was this building before?
This was Dan, you probably know better than I do. I think this was probably either a warehouse or it was it was probably a warehouse for cotton and textile machinery, most likely. Question here? So the short answer is yes. It's under construction, as Dan said. So the light rail, which goes south, will go all the way up to the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, which is one of the more exciting, I think, opportunities to pull things together.
Continue along, the extension has been funded and the construction contracts have been let. It'll go all the way out to the university and then circle on the university campus. At the same time, we've got under construction what's called the Gold Line that will run east-west, initially out to the Presbyterian Hospital, and that's a streetcar. It's not an elevated rail, it's a streetcar service line. It will eventually run out to Johnson C. Smith University in the west and over to Eastern Mall, out of the mall. Combination, federal transit funding, state funding, and local funding that comes from proceeds of dedicated sales tax.
But for the entire budget, Dan, you have to, you may give the speech better than I can. The entire budget, it is just what he said.
For the transit system, I don't actually know the entire budget for the transit system, but it operates solely within the fares plus the proceeds of the half-cent sales tax that was enacted last decade.
Are you talking about operating costs, or are you talking about the whole capital? The whole capital improvement plans, it's $1 billion, but that's not entirely for, that's for a lot of things outside of transportation.
The blue line we call it, which goes down to Pineville at I-45 and runs through the center city and go out to the university, that total construction budget of that is, I think, about $1.2 billion.
Stay up here. What other questions? Question over here?
You mentioned that, Bank of America, Bank of America was a huge driver for the growth. To what degree were the state's policies, the state's laws, an enabler or inhibitor in not just for bank regulations allowing mergers, but in addition to that? Another way to say it, did the state help or hinder the growth of the city?
Well, so your couple things you're referencing. One was in terms of the legal aspects of allowing branch banking, which was a very bank-friendly state. We were able to have banks in every neighborhood. And that allowed you to be large enough that then we can do other things, and that led to the Southeast Compact, which gave some protection to banks who were emerging in the Southeast. So those of you who aren't familiar with banking, it was a very friendly, it really enabled the initial growth of NCNB to then Nations Bank and then Bank of America. I would say that the state policies for banking and then for the growth here, again, the sales tax was a big one, which was passed in 1998. Half-cent sales tax, which gave local authorization to have a referendum here to determine that we would tax ourselves and put the money back in the infrastructure. And if you were to look at the transportation system without the sales tax, it would be a lot smaller than what it is today. So I would say, and my view, but Dan's a former state legislator, and I'll let him speak to this, but I think that they were positive and neutral. They didn't inhibit. They weren't as partisan or as strident as they were today. They were much more about building the state, allowing the state to build infrastructure, but we were at a little different time. And from 1998 to 2011, we actually got a ballot initiative here locally that were successful in putting on the local ballot to repeal the sales tax, which was defeated by a vote of 70 to 30. That gives you any sense of what the citizens of this city were really asking for. That was pretty resounding. But does that answer your question? But I'd say most of the state policies were relatively friendly, and the state was fairly generous in some of the building activity that went on here. The Plymouth Ball Theater, that was one of the big performance halls, the state was a contributor to, as was the city, county, and the virtually every building you're going to see now down here had some effort from the state. Go ahead.
To follow up, in Louisville, huge company for us is Humana, massive. And so it sounds like, this is ultimately a question, compared to, you have Bank of America, you have Humana, but then the difference is local options. Is really that simple? And it does enable you all to do what you did?
It's probably a little more complicated than that, because I am from Bank of America, but there are a lot of other good corporate citizens here, and I have to give a lot of credit to Duke Energy and the Bill Lees and Bill Griggs and Jim Rogers. All those folks were, and even I have to give a nod to Wachovia and Wells Fargo, because it became competitive building for a long time. We build a building, they build a building. We build a building, they build a building. And I will add one other thing. Competition is so great of a driver for innovation, because we made Wachovia better and they made us better because we were battling for people. We were battling for being the premier institution in town. And that drove that competition that I think really made the city a much, much better place. And I say that all the time. Always invite competition, invite change. It's really a good driver. Okay. Time for one other question. There's somebody in the back.
You referenced the role of the medical complex and the growth of Charlotte, but I didn't hear you give any details. Would you just give a brief summary?
Yeah, sure. One of the big drivers in a diversified economy, we have two great medicals. You have Novant, and you have Carolina's healthcare systems. Carolina's healthcare system is I could have told the same story I told about Charlotte Ballet, all it goes back about 20 years. They're the largest network of owner of hospitals, probably in the southeast region, and they are an enormous driver of. Dan mentioned it's the largest non-academic healthcare system, I think, probably in, I don't know if it's in the country or the Southeast. And the Levine Center for Cancer Research was a huge driver of bringing high-class doctors in. Some of the world's most renowned cancer researchers actually live in Charlotte now. So again, I think the banks, healthcare, energy, all those are great examples of what, we haven't done this alone with the banks for sure. And I think for the future, with the change going on in the healthcare industry, there'll be plenty of opportunities for enormous growth and opportunities, innovation there. But they're huge here. Okay, time to drink.
I think we like that. Hey Charles, thank you so much for your great message. I think for our mayor, we want to employ you as a lobbyist in Kentucky. We've been battling the localized sales tax, and the mayors can use all the help they can get. So if you get tired of Bank of America and want to be a lobbyist, I think these two would have an interest in talking to you. So, but thank you so much for your great message today. I thought one of the things that you said that was really impactful was what leaders do with change and the opportunity that does create. So thank you so much for your message. And as a sign of our appreciation, we want to give you one of our great Kentucky products. It's a bottle of Woodford Reserve. So enjoy, and thank you for your great message.